The dead ball era had a .239 batting average. The steroid era saw 73 home runs in a season. From spitballs to steroids, this is how baseball transformed across its 7 distinct eras. Baseball isn't one continuous sport that's been played the same way for over a century. It's a game that has constantly evolved, with distinct periods that almost feel like entirely different sports. The way baseball was played in 1905 bears little resemblance to how it's played today. The strategies, equipment, rules, and even the physical dimensions of the playing field have all changed dramatically. These changes didn't happen randomly. They came in waves, creating 8 distinct eras that baseball historians recognize as the chapters in the sport's evolution. Understanding these eras isn't just about appreciating history, it's about understanding why certain records and achievements from different periods can't be directly compared. The dead ball era. Let's start at the beginning of modern baseball with the dead ball era, which lasted from 1901 to 1919. This period earned its name because the baseball itself was fundamentally different from what we know today. The ball was soft, often became misshapen during play, and was rarely replaced during games. By the late innings, players were hitting what amounted to a soft, dirty, lopsided lump. The rules also heavily favored pitchers. They were allowed to doctor the ball in ways that would get you immediately ejected and suspended today. Spitballs, where pitchers would apply saliva, tobacco juice, or other substances to create unpredictable movement, were completely legal. Pitchers could also scuff, cut, or otherwise damage the ball to create movement. The playing fields themselves were enormous by today's standards. Home runs were rare, not just because the ball didn't travel as far, but because outfield fences were often so distant that inside the park home runs were more common than balls clearing the fence. All of this created a style of play that modern fans would barely recognize. The league-wide batting average during this era was just .239, and home runs were so rare that the league leader might hit just 10 or 12 in a season. In 1908, the Chicago White Sox hit just 3 home runs as a team for the entire season. Instead, teams relied on what came to be known as small ball: bunts, stolen bases, hit and runs, and other strategies designed to manufacture single runs. The game was low-scoring, with pitchers routinely throwing complete games and posting ERAs below 2.00. The stars of this era were players like Ty Cobb, who hit .366 over his career with a style focused on batting average and speed, and pitchers like Walter Johnson and Cy Young, who could throw complete games seemingly at will. Young finished his career with 511 wins and 749 complete games, records that will never be approached in the modern game. The live ball era. Everything changed in 1920, ushering in what's known as the live ball era, which lasted until 1941. Several factors contributed to this dramatic shift. First, the spitball and other doctored pitches were banned, though some pitchers were grandfathered in and allowed to continue using them. Second, umpires began replacing dirty or damaged balls much more frequently during games. And third, the ball itself was redesigned with a more tightly wound core that traveled farther when hit. The result was an offensive explosion unlike anything the game had seen before. Batting averages jumped from .239 in the dead ball era to around .280. Home runs, once a rarity, became a regular part of the game, and no one exemplified this change more than Babe Ruth. Ruth had been a dominant pitcher with the Boston Red Sox during the dead ball era, but after being sold to the New York Yankees in 1920, he transformed into baseball's first great power hitter. In 1920, Ruth hit 54 home runs, more than any entire team had hit the previous season. By 1927, he was hitting 60 home runs in a season, a record that would stand for 34 years. The live ball era saw the emergence of legendary sluggers like Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Jimmy Foxx. It also saw the construction of more intimate ballparks with reachable outfield fences, designed to accommodate and encourage the new power-hitting style. Yankee Stadium, built in 1923, was even nicknamed the house that Ruth built because it was designed with a short right field porch perfectly suited to Ruth's left-handed power. The integration era. The next major shift came with the integration era, spanning from 1942 to 1960. As the name suggests, this period was defined by the breaking of baseball's color barrier when Jackie Robinson joined the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. Over the next decade, a flood of talented black players who had previously been restricted to the Negro Leagues entered Major League Baseball, fundamentally changing the talent pool and style of play. Stars like Robinson, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Ernie Banks brought new levels of athleticism and excitement to the game. Robinson, in particular, revolutionized base running with his aggressive style, stealing home 19 times in his career. The integration era also coincided with World War II, which temporarily depleted the talent pool as many star players served in the military. This created opportunities for players who might not otherwise have reached the majors, including a one-armed outfielder named Pete Gray, who played for the St. Louis Browns in 1945. Statistically, the integration era saw batting averages remain high, around 260 to 270, while home runs continued to be a significant part of the game. The 1950s in particular saw tremendous offensive output, with players like Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and Stan Musial putting up numbers that still rank among the best ever. The expansion era. The expansion era, from 1961 to 1976, brought dramatic changes to the structure of Major League Baseball. The American and National Leagues expanded from 8 teams each to 12 and then to 14 by the end of this period. This diluted the talent pool, particularly among pitchers, leading to another offensive surge. The most visible result came in 1961 when Roger Maris hit 61 home runs, breaking Ruth's long-standing record. The asterisk that was unofficially attached to Maris's record, because he played in a 162-game season compared to Ruth's 154, highlighted the difficulty in comparing achievements across different eras. The expansion era also saw significant rule changes, most notably the lowering of the pitcher's mound from 15 inches to 10 inches in 1969. This was done in response to the Year of the Pitcher in 1968, when dominant performances by hurlers like Bob Gibson, who posted a 112 ERA, and Denny McLain, who won 31 games, had tilted the balance too far toward pitching. Another major change came in 1973 when the American League adopted the designated hitter rule, eliminating the need for pitchers to bat. This created a fundamental difference between the two leagues that would last for nearly 50 years until the National League finally adopted the DH in 2022. The expansion era saw the emergence of multi-purpose stadiums, large, symmetrical, often circular facilities that could accommodate both baseball and football. These cookie-cutter stadiums, with names like Three Rivers Stadium, Riverfront Stadium, and Veterans Stadium, lacked the charm and unique dimensions of earlier ballparks, but reflected the business-oriented approach that was beginning to dominate the sport. The free agency era. The free agency era from 1977 to 1993 was defined by a fundamental change in the business of baseball. Prior to this era, players were bound to their teams by the reserve clause, which essentially gave teams perpetual control over their players. This changed in 1975 when arbitrator Peter Seitz ruled in favor of pitchers Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally, effectively creating free agency. The result was a dramatic increase in player salaries and mobility. In 1979, Nolan Ryan became baseball's first million-dollar player when he signed with the Houston Astros. By the end of this era, top players were making over $7 million per year. On the field, the free agency era saw a balance between offense and defense, with batting averages hovering around 260 and home run rates remaining relatively stable. The era was dominated by complete players like Mike Schmidt, George Brett, and Rickey Henderson, who excelled in multiple facets of the game. The era also saw the emergence of artificial turf as a playing surface in many stadiums, which changed the style of play by creating faster ground balls and encouraging teams to emphasize speed and defense. The St. Louis Cardinals of the 1980s, led by manager Whitey Herzog, exemplified this approach with their Whitey ball strategy of speed, defense, and situational hitting. The steroid era. The most controversial period in baseball history began in 1994 with what came to be known as the Steroid Era, lasting until 2005. As the name suggests, this period was defined by the widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs, particularly anabolic steroids, which dramatically increased power numbers across the league. The statistical impact was immediate and dramatic. In 1995, the first full season after the 1994 strike, the league-wide batting average jumped to 267 and teams averaged 1.01 home runs per game, both significant increases from the previous era. By 2000, those numbers had climbed to 270 and 1.17 respectively. The most visible manifestation of this power surge came in 1998 when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa engaged in a season-long battle to break Maris's home run record. McGwire finished with 70, Sosa with 66, and both shattered the previous mark of 61. Just 3 years later, Barry Bonds would hit 73 home runs, establishing a record that still stands today. But these achievements came with an asterisk of their own. As evidence of widespread PED use emerged, particularly following the 2003 Balco scandal and the 2007 Mitchell report, many of the era's most impressive accomplishments were called into question. Players like Bonds, McGwire, Sosa, and Rafael Palmeiro saw their Hall of Fame candidacies derailed by PED allegations, despite putting up numbers that would otherwise make them first-ballot inductees. The steroid era wasn't just about chemical enhancement, though. It also saw the construction of a new generation of ballparks, beginning with Camden Yards in Baltimore in 1992. These retro-style stadiums combined the charm and unique dimensions of early 20th century parks with modern amenities. But many also featured dimensions that favored hitters, further contributing to the offensive explosion. The analytics era. In response to the controversies of the steroid era, baseball entered what we might call the post-steroid era, or analytics era, from 2006 to the present. This period has been defined by increased testing for performance-enhancing drugs, which has helped reduce, though not eliminate, their use, and by the rise of advanced analytics as a tool for evaluating players and making strategic decisions. The statistical impact of these changes has been significant. Batting averages have declined from their steroid-era peaks, hovering around 250 in recent years. Home run rates initially declined as well, though they've rebounded in the last decade due to changes in approach, rather than chemical enhancement. The analytics era has seen a fundamental shift in how the game is played. Armed with data about launch angles, exit velocities, and defensive positioning, teams have optimized their strategies in ways that would have been unimaginable in earlier eras. The result has been an increase in what are known as 3 true outcomes: home runs, walks, and strikeouts, which don't involve defensive players. Strikeouts, in particular, have reached unprecedented levels. In 2021, MLB players struck out in 23.2% of plate appearances, compared to just 16.4% in 1996. This reflects both a change in approach by hitters, who are more willing to accept strikeouts as the cost of swinging for power, and the emergence of a new generation of pitchers who throw harder than ever before. The analytics era has also seen significant changes in how pitchers are used. Complete games, once the norm, have become increasingly rare. In 2021, there were just 50 complete games across all of MLB, compared to 302 in 1998 and 1,089 in 2019-74. Instead, teams rely on a parade of relievers, many of whom throw at maximum effort for just an inning or less. The modern era. The most recent developments in baseball might suggest we're entering yet another distinct era, which we could call the modern era, or perhaps the pace of play era. Beginning in 2023, MLB implemented a series of rule changes designed to speed up the game and increase action, including a pitch clock, limits on defensive shifts, and larger bases to encourage stolen base attempts. The early results have been promising, with game times decreasing by about 30 minutes, and stolen base attempts increasing significantly. Whether these changes represent a true paradigm shift or merely an evolution of the analytics era remains to be seen. Looking back across these 8 eras, it's clear that baseball has never been a static game. It has constantly evolved in response to changes in rules, equipment, strategy, and the physical capabilities of its players. This evolution is what makes comparing players and achievements across different eras so challenging and so fascinating. Consider the case of Babe Ruth, who hit 714 home runs in an era when the ball was less lively, the fields were larger, and he faced only white pitchers. How would he fare in today's game, with its specialized relievers, advanced defensive positioning, and diverse talent pool? Or conversely, how many home runs might Barry Bonds have hit in the 1920s, without the benefit of modern training methods, but also without facing pitchers who routinely throw 95+ miles per hour? These questions have no definitive answers, which is part of what makes baseball's historical debates so enduring. But understanding the distinct characteristics of each era helps us appreciate the context in which records were set and legends were made. It also helps us understand why certain achievements stand out even within their own eras. When Bob Gibson posted a 1.12 ERA in 1968, the league-wide ERA was 2.98, meaning he was nearly 2 runs better than average. When Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs in 2001, the next highest total was 64, a gap of 9 that represented more than 10% of the record. As baseball continues to evolve, new eras will emerge, bringing with them new stars, new strategies, and new statistical benchmarks. The game played in 2050 may bear as little resemblance to today's version as today's game does to the dead ball era. But that's what makes baseball's history so rich and its future so intriguing. It's not one sport, but many, each with its own character and its own standards of greatness. From the dead ball era's 239 batting average to the steroid era's 73 home runs in a season, baseball has transformed itself again and again. Understanding these transformations doesn't diminish the game's greatest achievements. It enhances our appreciation for them by placing them in their proper context. And it reminds us that when we watch baseball today, we're witnessing just the latest chapter in a story that continues to unfold one era at a time.